On November 26, 2021, a concerned woman named Giselle Gonzalez walked into the Framingham Police Department in Massachusetts. She was there to report her roommate, 26-year-old Ronality Medina Pacheco, missing. Giselle told officers that Ronality had simply vanished. She hadn't seen her in over a week, since November 17th. According to Giselle, Ronality had left their shared apartment on 2nd Street and never came back. She said she was worried that it wasn't like her friend to just disappear without a word. The police took the report seriously. A young woman was gone, and her family was desperate for answers. They launched a missing person investigation, plastering Ronality's photo across social media and local news outlets. They urged the public to come forward with any information. But as the days turned into weeks, a chilling silence settled over the case. No one had seen or heard from Ronality. It was as if she had been erased. Investigators decided to take a closer look at the person who last saw her roommate, Giselle Gonzalez. They brought her in for questioning, hoping she could provide a detail, any small clue, that might lead them to Ronality. Giselle recounted her story again. She claimed Ronality had packed a bag and left, possibly heading to Lawrence to see a man she was dating. But as detectives pressed her for more details, her story started to unravel. Her timeline was inconsistent, her answers vague. She seemed nervous, her explanations shifting with each question. The detectives' instincts told them something was deeply wrong. This wasn't just a case of a worried roommate. This was a woman with a secret. Their suspicions grew when they obtained a search warrant for the apartment Giselle and Ronality shared. What they found inside was disturbing. The apartment had been scrubbed clean, almost to clean. The smell of bleach and cleaning chemicals hung heavy in the air, a clear attempt to erase any potential evidence. But despite the meticulous cleaning, forensics teams discovered something damning. Using specialized chemical agents, they found traces of human blood in the bathroom. The blood was on the floor, on the walls, and even on the shower curtain. The scene painted a grim picture. A violent struggle had taken place in that small apartment. The police now had a potential crime scene, but they still needed to connect it directly to Ronality. They asked Giselle to come in for another interview. This time, they confronted her with the evidence. They told her about the blood in the bathroom. They pointed out the inconsistencies in her story. Cornered and under pressure, Giselle's story changed dramatically. She admitted that she hadn't been truthful. She now claimed that a man had come to their apartment, had a violent fight with Ronality, and killed her. Giselle insisted she was just a terrified witness, that this man had forced her to help clean up the scene and dispose of Ronality's body. It was a shocking confession, but detectives were skeptical. Giselle's story felt rehearsed, like a desperate attempt to shift blame. Who was this mystery man? Giselle couldn't provide a name or a clear description. The more she talked, the less credible she became. Investigators suspected she was the sole perpetrator, inventing a phantom accomplice to save herself. They believed Giselle Gonzalez hadn't just witnessed a murder, she had committed it. The investigation took a darker turn when they started digging into Giselle's digital footprint. They uncovered text messages between Giselle and Ronality that revealed a toxic and volatile relationship. The two roommates were constantly fighting, primarily over money. The arguments were heated, filled with anger and resentment. These messages painted a motive. The tension in the apartment had reached a boiling point, and it seemed plausible that one of these arguments had escalated to deadly violence. Armed with physical evidence from the apartment, a shifting story from Giselle, and a clear motive from the text messages, prosecutors felt they had enough to act. On December 17, 2021, nearly a month after Ronalidi was last seen, the police made their move. They arrested 28-year-old Giselle Gonzalez. She was initially charged with tampering with evidence and misleading a police investigation. But everyone knew more serious charges were coming. The district attorney's office formally charged her with murder. The arrest brought a sense of resolution, but it also left a gaping hole in the case. Where was Ronalidi Medina Pacheco? Despite extensive searches and public appeals, her body has never been found. This is one of the most haunting aspects of the case. Without a body, prosecutors would have to build their case entirely on circumstantial evidence. They would have to convince a jury that Ronalidi was dead, and that Giselle was the one who killed her, all without the most crucial piece of evidence. This is what's known as a no-body homicide case, and they are notoriously difficult to prosecute. The defense can always argue that the missing person isn't dead at all, that they simply chose to leave and start a new life elsewhere. They can create reasonable doubt by pointing to the absence of a body. For Ronalidi's family, the lack of closure is an ongoing agony. They can't give her a proper burial. They are left in a perpetual state of limbo, clinging to the hope of justice but denied the finality of saying goodbye. As the case moved toward trial, the prosecution laid out its theory. They alleged that on or around November 17, Giselle Gonzalez murdered Ronalidi Medina Pacheco inside their apartment during a violent altercation. They believe she then went to great lengths to conceal her crime. She scrubbed the apartment with bleach, lied to the police, and disposed of Ronalidi's body in a location that remains unknown. The prosecution argued that her actions after the disappearance, the lies, the cover-up were not the actions of an innocent person or a scared witness, but of a guilty murderer. The defense, on the other hand, stuck to their narrative. They argued that Giselle was a victim herself, coerced by a violent man who was the real killer. They painted her as someone who was terrified and acting under duress. They emphasized the lack of a body, questioning how the state could prove a murder without a victim. The stage was set for a dramatic and challenging legal battle. The trial was a testament to the power of circumstantial evidence. Prosecutors presented the blood evidence from the bathroom, the text messages showing the bitter feud between the roommates, and Giselle's own conflicting statements. They called witnesses who testified about the constant fighting they overheard coming from the apartment. They methodically built a wall of evidence around Giselle, piece by piece, showing a pattern of behavior that pointed directly to her guilt. The jury listened intently to both sides. They had to weigh the prosecution's circumstantial case against the defense's claims and the undeniable fact that Ronalidi's body was still missing. After deliberating, they reached a decision. On November 3, 2023, nearly 2 years after Ronalidi vanished, the jury found Giselle Gonzalez guilty of first-degree murder. The verdict was a victory for the prosecution and a moment of profound, yet incomplete, justice for Ronalidi's family. Giselle Gonzalez was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. She was held accountable for her actions, but she has never revealed what she did with Ronalidi's body. The secret of Ronalidi's final resting place died with Giselle's freedom. For the family, the conviction provides a measure of peace, but the questions remain. Why did this happen? What was the final argument about? And the most painful question of all, where is Ronalidi? The case of Giselle Gonzalez and Ronalidi Medina Pacheco is a tragic story about a friendship that soured and ended in the most horrific way imaginable. It is a reminder of how quickly disagreements can escalate and how a web of lies can ultimately lead to a person's downfall. But most importantly, it's the story of a young woman whose life was cut short, and a family that continues to search for answers and a place to lay their loved one to rest. The legal case may be closed, but the human tragedy endures. Thank you for watching. If you found this story compelling, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more true crime content. Stay safe.